And so before we begin, I'd like if each of you can share a little bit more about yourself and also your role at the CBCS. Thank you.
Yes, shall I start? Okay, my name is Glensia Maduro. I'm head of payments department at Central Bank, responsible for payments operations at the Central Bank and also policy. And I was the project manager, responsible to coordinate the project instant payment in St. Maarten. And that's what I'm doing right now. So it's a big, but I'm happy doing that.
Okay, great.
Yes, good afternoon. I'm Cedric Peters, as Nancy indicated, Manager Market Operations and Payments. So I'm responsible for the whole division, of which payments operations is part of it. So it consists of treasury operations, foreign reserve management, and then you have the payments part, which is split up between the operations part and the policy part. So I'm responsible for the whole division, and that's my role into the project, and also accountable for it.
Okay, great. And thank you so much for your responses. So my first question for you, and both of you can respond, is how long did it take to get the instant payment system operational? What was the process like, if you can detail that?
Shall I begin? And then my Cedric will, when I forget something, he will.
Sure.
Okay, actually, we started this project before the COVID situation more than 2 years ago, where we had our target was to have this project instant payment implemented in 2020. But due to the COVID and the banks had to concentrate more on their normal operations and put actually the all the new projects, new things aside. We land up till to implementing this instant payment project January 2022. But basically, the project itself started in where we had meetings with the bank, weekly meetings. It was in February 2020, when the situation started, and we had on and off meetings. And the problem was that a lot of banks could not have had their vendors working on the project because of traveling situations, etc. But we managed. Within the COVID, people have to work remotely. We had meetings, weekly meetings, but we managed to have it implemented 2 weeks ago.
So yes, indeed, it was a long hold. It took about almost 2 years to get that far. And especially the last time we had postponed a little bit because of COVID. But then we pushed through, and we are here.
Okay. Thank you for your responses. One of my first questions for you, now that we're starting to get into this, is what were the bottlenecks that you had to work through? What were some of the hurdles that you had to get over to now have this presented, to the island?
Yeah. First of all, this is a major project, not only for the central bank but also for the commercial banks. They have to be able to have system working. They have to put major investments. So it's actually to be able to have instruments working. All the banks, each bank to the instant payment network has to be at the same level. The standards have to be the banks have to deploy the same piece of workings, and to be able to exchange message between Bank A and Bank B and the central bank, it has to be based on a standard, what we call the ISO 20022 standards. And so all the banks should have work on the same specifications, the same requirements. And you have banks that have other priorities. So to coordinate all the banks at the same level is a big task. And also, what we mentioned it a couple of times, the COVID situation bring us in another level that there were banks that we had plannings mentioned that some milestones we have to reach at a certain moment in time over 2 or 3 months. But due to COVID, we had to extend it, and then it was a big task to coordinate all the banks at the same time. And that's why right now what you can say is that the instant payment in St. Maarten is live. We have two banks that are not currently on the network. That is First Caribbean St. Maarten and the Republic Bank. The First Caribbean St. Maarten, we expect in a couple of weeks they will join the instant payment network, and the Republic will be more later during this year.
Okay, understood. So with that, then I'm curious about what has been the feedback of the banks in launching this, and can you give a little more insight as to why those two banks weren't able to immediately sign on like the others?
I don't want to go to the details about their motivations or their part, but I can say that First Caribbean was almost will join us almost at the same time as the other banks, but at the last moment they had some internal systems that are not totally working on the instant payment. That they say, okay, to be able to serve their customer, they need to hold it a little bit, a couple of weeks, and then they will join. So it was they are ready, but there are some small systems that are not totally aligned with the instant payments network. That's why they hold it a couple of weeks before they join us. But Republic Bank is another topic. It's because they are in the process right now to deploy a total new system at their bank, and they say, okay, let's concentrate on their internal systems. Then they will join us later to instant payment.
Okay, and I also just asking this question for the sake of clarity. With the instant payment, that will be solely for the immediate transfer of funds in local banks and not any regional or foreign banks.
Yes, that's correct. The instant payment is immediate transfer of funds of payments between Bank A and Bank B, and that is within seconds, and that is only for local transactions. And what is local? Local is transaction between Bank A and Bank B in St. Maarten, and also if Bank B is in Curacao and vice versa. So we consider local St. Maarten and St. Maarten Curacao. And for this project, we deployed also for Bonaire, but Bonaire is separate. So only Bonaire banks can instant payment between a Bank A and Bank B and Bonaire is possible, but not between a Bank A and Bonaire and Bank B and St. Maarten or vice versa.
Okay, understood.
Glenscher, maybe to clarify, Ralph, we can add to the description by Glenscher that the Bank A to Bank B part in St. Maarten only regards Dutch St. Maarten. The fact is that French St. Maarten is considered cross-border. So the transactions between a Dutch bank or a bank on the Dutch side of St. Maarten and a bank on the French side of St. Maarten, with this implementation, it's still not instant. It will take the necessary amount of days because that has to go through Bankwire and with the fees that go with that. So again, the implementation is instant for between two banks on St. Maarten, specifically the Dutch side of St. Maarten. Of course, along the way, in our further deployments, we intend also to engage into conversations with the French government and central bank to see whether we can also make payments between Dutch banks and French banks on St. Maarten instant. But that's a later plan.
Okay, I'm glad that you shared that because that actually was going to be my next question as far as how far do you see the adaption going. And so while I understand that, yeah, that there's that hard line in terms of the state of the nation state being French and Dutch, with this, with, for example, the applications being set up on St. Martin and even a separate work being done in Bonnier, do you see the central bank even at least making, probably as a first step, approaching the Netherlands and the central bank in the Netherlands, that there will be a connection, with banks in the kingdom? Has that been something you've explored?
Yes, there are preliminary talks with the Dutch Central Bank, the Nederlandse Bank, concerning transactions between Bonaire, Curacao, St. Maarten, and Holland. That is only preliminary because if you can, it's not totally technical, because technical we can do a lot of things. We can do instant payment between St. Maarten accounts to the Dutch citizens account, but we have to deal with also the euro currency, because the transactions in St. Maarten are in ANG and US dollar, and in the Europe there are in euro. So you have a conversion, and there should be a third party to deal with the conversion and how to deal with the risk of conversion between US dollar and ANG amounts to euro and vice versa. So it's a little bit more complicated, but there are preliminary talks with the Dutch Central Bank, and then we have to come into agreement how we're going to do that. But it will be in a later stadium, of a couple of years, because it's not so easy. It's possible. We would like to do that, but we have to do things step by step.
Yes, our focus and our efforts now, Ralph, is in to improve domestic payments through instant, and also go into what we call phase 2, in which we will look at use cases to make domestic payments more efficient between single person, also persons to business or person to government. And then after that, we will visit the use cases in which you could connect, for example, with the Netherlands bank there, and also, for example, with the French banks in St. Maarten.
Okay, understood. So with that, I have a question as far as the instant payment system, and I'm wondering, is it that exclusive? And what I mean is in the sense of, so it is created, the banks can use it, but can it be shared in regards to, potentially new financial services being connected to it? So for example, like, let's say if it's a person to person, let's say a Fintech is created, to allow persons to, make payments to each other, like a Tiki or a Cash App. Can that IP system that you guys create also be integrated in that, or is it just exclusive?
Okay, yes, that is possible. What we will launch on January 15, you can say, is the foundation infrastructure for the payments network in St. Maarten and Curacao. So basically the instant payment, we call it IPCSM. That is the basic infrastructure. And on top of it, you can add it the payment services, additional, or you call it added value payment services on top of this rail. And there you can talk about connection with payment service providers, etc. But that is what we call the phase 2 or phase 3, where there is possibility to connect via a special standard, the standard that the payments message are going through the system are the ISO 20 or 22, and then using this standard we can connect other non-banks to this network. But these are possibilities, but we have to keep on studying it, and together with the banks and others, to see how we're going to implement this. You have to make to think that all these investments are very large investments. So it's not that we technically we can do everything, but we have to measure what we're going to allow and what we're not going to allow, because at the moment those investment, you have to be able to pay them back. So, and the citizens in St. Maarten, we have 50,000. You have to be able to cover all your costs using only those that amount of account holders that you, are possible that the banks can charge back, or the payment service providers can charge back their to get back their investment. It's not like in Holland or in Netherlands, where you have 17 million citizens that you can share all the investment between the large population. But here we have small island population, and we have to take good look before we go very quickly into do the investments.
Also, if I can complement Ralph to what just Glenshire mentioned, to start with this last comment about the investment, that's why in planning for further use cases in the next phase, we intend to partner with the Central Bank of Aruba, in which we would try to coordinate technology that we want to put a layer on this basic infrastructure so that we can achieve those efficiencies in payments between person to person, person to government, person to business, in relation which Glenshire just explained. And also, I would like to comment on Glenshire's first remark about access to fintechs. Of course, it will be possible, because the standard would be the standard. But then again, as a central bank, we want also that access to be efficient. In the way it's structured right now, there is a possibility of fintech companies, electronic wallets to have access through commercial banks. However, we are looking into possibilities to allow direct access by fintechs to the instant payment rail. But of course, that could, in theory, be possible. We need to update our procedures to allow so. But then again, we would prefer to be engaged then with the bigger fintechs, and not like a lot of small ones being directly hooked. Because of course, by being hooked to the IPS, you are also hooked to the RTGS of the countries, which are very sensitive systems, so which will have a high demand on the organizational side and system side of these fintechs. There is a possibility we are looking at, maybe not right away, but we will take that into consideration during the course of this year, for sure. But then probably it will be most advantageous for the bigger fintechs with a lot of clients and so forth to hook up directly. And for the other ones, the smaller ones, maybe it would be a better idea for them to hook up through a commercial banks. Thank you.
Okay, so I appreciate that elucidation. So my next question for you is, what sort of involvement is the central bank considering when it relates to involvement from other stakeholders in the financial sector in being able to assist with moving forward this project?
Yes. As Cedric mentioned, first of all, we to benefit of economy of scales, we're going to partner with the Central Bank of Aruba to have a bigger market for the banks to cover their costs. And in the course of this year, we will have what we call the fintech stakeholders, fintechs, the merchants, the government, and also the banks and potential clients. We would like to have like what we call a mini conference, etc., to talk about what are the possibilities and at which course we're going to take, and at which what technology we're going to make use of it, and in which phase or in the timeline we're going to put to accomplish all these objectives that we have. So we are aware that there are a lot of fintechs out there that would like to join, but we have to make this thing efficient and inclusive for everybody, but it takes some coordination to have all the stakeholders in line to hook up into the instant payment network. So in the course of this year, we will have the stakeholders together in a conference, in mini conference, and that's where we're going to discuss the way forward.
To complement Glenn Ralph, also when we speak about fintechs, of course they are part of the stakeholders. There are more, as mentioned, Glenn mentioned, for example, the government or public utilities, for example, GB in your case, and other public utilities there in St. Maarten. But also, when we think fintech, most times we only think about electronic wallets. Yes, that's only one form of fintech, but you have other financial technology companies operating on our markets that can, for example, support the commercial banks, for example, or further enhancement of their own service. So when thinking about fintechs, yes, we have a couple, probably, but let's be frank. St. Maarten probably doesn't need 10 electronic wallets on the market for the domestic market then. So probably it will consolidate, and then there will be room also for fintechs, for example, payment service providers, payment gateways, and so on. Maybe they can provide services to these other parties, the public utility companies, the government, and the domestic commercial banks, in order for them to improve their customers' experience regarding to instant payment. So, but then those discussions, we hope to have them, as mentioned by Glenn, when we have that engagement with the stakeholders this year to see how we can maximize and prepare ourselves to go into a phase 2 where the users can experience more of instant payments.
Okay, thank you so much. So I just have two more questions for you. As you detail the information on the instant payments, the ambition or the goal of efficiency, which you stated earlier, really stands out, as particularly considering the fact that everyone is kind of hype about going digital, and also the convenience factor of it. So I'm guessing that with this instant payment system, it would be instrumental in ushering a newer, enhanced form of digital banking in our islands. But also, I'm curious about what other support systems can the islands expect from the CBCS?
Okay. When we talk about use cases, we talk about, for example, when you mention transaction P2P, person to person, where we're going to enable each the bank's mobile apps, so that be able to create sample QR codes, and then where, let's say, if the payer and the payee are in the same room, they can share the QR code and then make the payment instant. Or if, for example, you have a shop, you're going to sell things online for web shops, and then there should be a possibility to pay also instant using the instant network. For example, you put things in your shopping cart, and then when you want to check out, you select the instant payment option. The system show you a QR code. You can scan it, and then payment can will go instantly. And there are various more situations that flavors that you can make use of. For example, the QR code on invoices from utility companies, and also the possibility in store payments, that instead of using your card to swipe or to tap, you can use also your phone to do the payment. For example, the cashier show a QR code for the amount and etc., and then you can scan it. These are different flavors that you can add on top of the system, what we call the use cases. And also what you mentioned, that you can have payment service providers that are not commercial banks, not banks, that can have their e-wallet ecosystem, that either via a commercial bank, so indirect, can send payments to and from the payments network, or you can be also a direct participant. But of course, to be able to be a direct participant, the requirements are much higher, because you need to have also account with the central bank, etc., etc. So these are possibilities that we have to engage with the banks and also stakeholders in the near future, and put on the timeline what are we going to implement, and which service we get the better what you call it, advantage if we invest in that kind of service. So there are various possibilities, but we looking at the investment and the market. We have to be very careful what we're going to implement, because technology we can develop, we can buy, we can push everything, but somebody has to pay for all those investment. Okay. And I would like to also, we didn't touch that part with the current system, what we have. That's very important that for your listeners, that the account number is very, very important, that you have the correct account number when you do a transfer. Because the system, the computer are looking solely on the account number. If the account number is not correct, the transaction will be rejected. So there won't be any human intervention when a transaction is moving from bank E to bank B. There is no human intervention. It's only exclusively computers talking with each other within seconds. So if the account number is not correct, the payment will be rejected. And so it's very important to all the corporate, the companies that are doing payrolls at the end of this month, or to paying invoices, take a look at the account numbers that you have to fill in, or it's already in your database. And if there are any dots, any spaces, dashes in the account number, you have to remove them, because if there is anything, if the receiving bank expect an 8-digit account number, but they find it at the 8-digit account with dots in it and dashes, the system will reject the payment. Very important.
Okay, understood. All right, so that is that safety buffer basically as well.
Yes.
Okay.
But of course, Ralph, when you deploy a system, as Glenshire mentioned, it was a big deployment that we did on January 15. Sometimes in the first week to 2 weeks to 3 weeks, you will have some hiccups. And a couple of these, the majority of hiccups that we have been seeing in the system relates to incorrect account numbers. So it's very, very important for each corporate to take a look at their batch before sending, and that each bank also educate their clients when they want to pay a client with a bank account at their bank, that they have to make sure if it is 8 digits long, 6 digits long, or 10 digits long, that they take that into account.
Okay, I appreciate that clarification as well. And so maybe
also to complement what Glenshire earlier said, introducing instant payment in the example that Glenshire gave, for you to take good notice, when you're paying in a store, you will still have that POS there on the counter, which you can take out your card and swipe and pay. But using that rail is not instant payment. That is the normal cards rail. That won't go away. So it will stay there. Now it's going through a separate system of the domestic banks using a MasterCard system. It will stay. You can still pay by taking your card out, tapping, or sliding that. The new rail, being the instant payment rail, you won't need a card for it. Because if you go to mobile solutions, as Glenshire was explaining, you just open up your mobile, your payment app on your phone, and then the cash register will show you a QR code, something like that, and then you will scan and pay. So you will have then 2 rails of payment possible in store. Just to clarify for you what the future development will be.
Okay, great. That definitely sounds good. And yeah, so my final question for you then is just as a pointer in relation to data, I guess the IP system is just a free flow where funds go to and fro, and it doesn't necessarily collect any data. Can you just give some clarity on that?
Can you
Sorry,
just
yeah.
clarify again?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So my final question for you is just as it relates to the IP system of it sort of being like a stream where funds can go to and fro, but does it also do anything in line of data collection as well?
Okay. Of course, any payment record, whether it's an old batch processes system, whether it's our a real-time growth settlement system, the Swift system, all those things, there are payments going through back and forth between the system. The banks have the records from payments going out and payments coming in, and from the sending side, the receiving side, and also the sender bank can. All those records are, of course, duly protected in the database. So we have all the payments records, and then of course you can make statistics. So that is things that the central bank is working on to provide to the community, back to the community, and also to the banks, statistics about the incoming and outgoing payments, etc., etc. So the volume and the value of those payments. But these are on the macro level. So no, we're not going to look at details of all the payments, but also, for example, today, how many payments were processed, were 10,000 payments, those kind of information, and then the amount, the value. And very important, you didn't touch this topic, but the topic of cyber security is also very high on our agenda. So what we can mention on that part is that the partner that we are engaged with to process the instant payment for the central bank is the company, is the European company Worldline. And that is the same company that processes instant payment in Holland for the commercial banks in Holland, for example, ABN AMRO, for Rabobank. Payments, instant payment between those banks has the same security, the same cyber requirements as for the local banks in St. Maarten and Curacao and Bonaire. So with that, we can say it's on the security, the cyber security, etc., is on the highest level based on global standards.
Okay, thank you for that point as well. That definitely totally slipped my mind because yeah, if we're going to talk about digital, cyber security is of absolute importance. So with that, is there any final comments that both of you would like to share?
Yes, only thing is that for there is a threshold amount, a maximum amount for one individual payment in the instant payment. That is 1 million Antillian guilder, or the equivalent in US dollar is approximately 560,000 US dollar. And we process transactions in ENG and also in US dollar. And it's one of the characteristics from our network is that if a payment is coming in ENG and it has to hit a US dollar account, or it's coming in a US dollar and has to hit a ENG account, the banks will convert and then post. So, for example, bank transactions coming in from $1,000 and it has to be credited to an ENG account. So the receiving bank will convert the $1,000 US dollar, for example, in 1,790 guilders and then post. So these are things that, for example, other instant network in Europe and in America don't have, because they exclusively in one currency. The one that we have is you can do dual currency, and also during the dual currency it can do also the conversion.
I just wanted to add that every new development sometimes comes with a little bit of hiccups, and that can be on the corporate side or on the retail side. So when companies are sending payments or when the retail clients are sending payments, that sometimes it takes some adjustment to get everything instant as you would like. And that also goes for, as Glenshire mentioned, that 2 banks in St. Maarten aren't participating at this time. So we hope then that during this year we can get those banks also on the rail of instant payment. And also, we didn't mention, also 2 banks in Curacao are not participating on this rail. So it's not only banks in St. Maarten, but also we have 2 banks in Curacao that are not participating. I just wanted to add that point.
Okay, great. And I would like to thank both of you for the opportunity, to further give some explanation on the instant payment system and how it will impact and work here on the island. And I appreciate it. And thank you so much.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye-bye.